Санкт-Петербург.
Родным языком, а также лучше знают и понимают.
So our video is going to be in English because we have a very special guest today, Andrew Walkley, who is a writer, materials writer, course book writer, teacher trainer, a great presenter, and a co-founder of Lexical Lab English School for Teachers.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So there was a great conference organized by Dmitry Nikitin's school with the support of Bookbridge and Advanced English with Polina Kordik. And the tickets for this conference were sold out in just a few days as soon as they offered it at the early price registrations, and unfortunately quite a few people were able to attend. But
always next year, isn't there?
Maybe, or someone might follow you to Krasnoyarsk. Why not?
Yeah.
So hopefully you'll be our country's guest again and again.
Yeah, I hope so.
So Andrew has kindly agreed to come to 10 Maratha Street in Petersburg to Bookbridge Bookshop for a book signing event, and we have already some people who are queuing for the autograph.
Okay.
Can we start?
Not too many people, but it's good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
All right.
So
okay.
Nice to meet you. Really.
So lovely to meet you as well.
It's a great honor. To have such a connection with you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. As far as I am really specializing in advanced levels and upper intermediate levels, probably you can tell me some life hacks how to work with that.
Okay. Yeah.
What's your favorite life hack? If we don't talk about lexical thing, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Thank you.
So with these, when I'm planning, I tend to there's two things that I tend to do. I will write some questions about the vocabulary, which is in the book, to explore how the vocab is used. And I sometimes use those for revision tasks as well.
And it's really efficient.
Yeah, and then I also cheat and think about what students might want to say when they're doing the speaking activities. And I'll write out various phrases and ideas that they might, what I would say if I was answering them. And then I have those prepared. So if the students don't actually have that much to say, I can write, particularly if I've got a class, I can say, somebody said this, it was fascinating. And I write it on the board, and then we do some work with the language, and then they might have a go at using it.
I think I will use this. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
It's okay, pleasure.
So I believe
of course, yeah.
Helen.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
If you don't mind, can we take a photo?
Of course, yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
You.
Okay.
As far as I understand, you are introducing two kind of series of books, Outcomes and Innovations, right?
Yes.
So what's the crucial difference between them? So do they have absolutely different approaches or what?
Innovations is perhaps more lexical.
It's outcomes about the results.
So it's maybe a little bit more unusually lexically based. So for example, innovations elementary, we take a lot of phrases which you might not see normally in an elementary book, but we're presenting them as phrases rather than as grammar.
Isn't it an academic one if it is focused on
No. Quite the opposite. So it's much more based around
casual,
simple conversations.
Familiar talking.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And it builds on a kind of circular syllabus. Okay. Whereas Outcomes elementary would be a little bit more traditional. So it's a little bit more based on the typical grammar syllabus. It goes a little bit quicker than a lot of course books because we believe that the students have probably studied some grammar before if they're elementary. And also if they're elementary, we assume they've done some beginner course or they've done some study before. Exactly. So they might have some residual knowledge, and so we can go a little bit quicker. But still, some of the principles still say the same. So there's a focus on speaking, on useful outcomes in terms of speaking. So they're doing social interactions as well as I guess functional type of things, you know, like in shops and stuff like that. So
it's more like for real life, and this is more for
no, that I would say they're both for real life.
Real life.
Absolutely. But this one is maybe it's the way we present language is slightly different. So for example, in this one, in unit 4, which is quite early on,
this is the unit that you made yourself.
These are all these. Yeah, I mean, I wrote all of these, so I know what I'm doing.
Okay.
Is what are you doing later?
Yeah.
And I'm going somewhere. So it basically introduces a simple planning or talking about what you're doing in events. So in a normal elementary course book, you would never have this at this so early on in the course.
Yeah. So they say like present simple, studied present simple for 2 years.
Exactly. So here we're just, but all they have to do is it's based on the conversation. So they're not teaching everything about it. So they will teach, what are you doing? I'm and we're going. So they're not learning every part of the future, if you like. They will learn that later on in the course, and it's kind of repeated as you go along. So this one is perhaps more different to your traditional course than the Outcomes Elementary, which is a little bit more traditional.
And are they both supplied with kind of videos? I see that this one is
the elementary,
kind of based on
it's outcomes
videos.
again, because it's kind of more of a mainstream course. They have video. They have both in the end of the speaking practice one. There's a video, and they also every couple of units they have a short video connected with National Geographic. And obviously Outcomes was also we had use of National Geographic photos. So there's a lot more kind of, you know, you get these nice photos at the beginning of the thing. And they have when we chose the photos, they're aimed to be like how you generate conversation.
Yeah, provoking. Like,
yeah, exactly. So we try to find things which are not just arresting in a visual way, but also have something to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and which one is easier for working with from the point of view of the teacher? So if a new teacher comes, so which of these two books requires less preparation, or they both require quite a lot of studies?
No, I would say neither of them require lots of preparation. It depends. I mean, I find them both easy to use. I've written them, and I try to write them to be easy to use. So it's a difficult question to answer. I know when it was published, some people said that Innovations was more for expert teachers, but I think this is more just in the sense of if you've learnt or done a short course where you've learnt that we proceed in certain ways with certain grammar, etc. This would be less familiar to those teachers. But in terms of actually how we build the conversations and how we support students, it's a very simple book to use. I think we have my colleague who's used elementary quite a lot, and she would agree, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. Okay. So, but both courses are focused on adults, right? Young adults.
So both of them are adults focused, and they're looking at primarily we start from thinking about what are the conversations you want to have and enabling those to have those kinds of conversations. Outcomes has a few more texts and longer listenings, perhaps. That would be also a slight difference.
And as for audio recording, so two people who did the recording, so they have different accents?
Yeah, so
also native speakers and
so I mean accents. The way all books are written, they are the people you hear on them are actors.
Actors.
Yeah. This is true of all publishing.
Good for you to say it.
because you can't. It's very difficult to organise kind of spontaneous teaching, speaking. So the actors are very good at doing different accents. So all you basically ask them is to say, right, can you do this in a Spanish accent or a French accent or a Liverpool accent or a... So there's a variety of accents you will hear, but they are all acted. They are quite good, some of them. Some of them not always brilliant, but they are genuine, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which of them do you love more?
Well, it's like choosing,
best
between
child,
different children.
I
I mean, I suppose because this was my first child, perhaps one has a certain more affection for it. But I love outcomes too. Yeah.
Shall I keep on talking? I'll let somebody else
There's no one queuing, so it's up to you.
Yeah. Well, actually, I have a kind of problem. I'm trying to struggle to find a book. So you say
who do you teach at the moment in?
So I come from Walkley.
Okay.
Yeah, and I work for a private school. So
okay.
And we have kind of evening courses for different levels, absolutely. And we have a very popular course, which is called kind of express course, where people come who have almost next to nothing actually knowledge of English. So yes, then they realize that they do remember something from their school years, but actually they can't talk. They are afraid to talk. Well, just the usual thing. And I've been trying for many years to find a good course book. So because we can't do it. So we have usually what? Either the book is too big, too long, and we have like a 4-month course. Yeah. And that's why we can't just put it into these, just fit in into our schedule. Or the book is quite short, but then it's so elementary that it doesn't teach anything in reality. So it's just like present simple I am, possibly I'm sitting, and that's all.
Yes.
Yeah, but we want to give them the basics.
Exactly.
So in these 2 months in a logical way, because of course adults can grasp immediately.
Exactly.
Did you drink tea yesterday? Do you drink tea? Will you drink tea tomorrow?
Yeah.
And it's just one lesson.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why. So and still now we use like our own material. We compiled some materials here. But I want to find a beautiful and nice book, because when people take a nice book, always kind of motivation rises.
Yeah. So you might the best may be for you beginners outcomes.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking for beginners, but elementary. So.
Yes. So we've just written. So maybe. Bookbridge hasn't received them yet, but I'm sure they will do shortly. But they're basically beginners outcomes is based on exactly this idea that we don't have to spend like 4 units doing the verb to be. We can do it in 1 unit. We can also teach them don't know, and teach them some question words, so they don't have to be only talking about where you were from. Is he from France? No, he's not. So we enable them to have a more variety of conversations with a little language. So we assume that they don't have very much.
Fair enough.
We teach them some of that vocabulary through pictures and stuff like that. We show them how they worked, but we're showing them how they can have more of a variety of languages. And then sometimes we teach them things like, again, similarly, we have plans at quite an early stage, unit 5, I think. But again, in a similar way, we're not teaching them everything about it, but just enough for them to have that conversation. And then as a result, and then maybe we come back to that grammar later in the course.
Yeah, because they tend to forget.
Exactly. So we're kind of having so rather than having in one block after another, we have a little bit, and then later in the course we have another little bit, and then later in the course. So they're getting more exposure and repeated encounters with this language. So that's the principle, particularly of the beginner outcomes and innovations. I mean, innovations elementary you may work as well. It's a little bit, we assume that they know some language, so some things you might find.
Yeah, they're supposed to be reading freely, more or less.
Yeah, but you may find you can make use of that as well.
But elementary also impressed me quite a lot.
Yes, exactly.
looks so nice.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah.
And you know, the same principles are more or less working at the same way. Yeah.
But beginning is much easier then, right?
Yeah, beginner would be exactly. Yeah, I mean,
Much
beginner is
easier.
written for beginners.
Yeah, because here it's like it says that A1 to A2.
Exactly.
Right? And they're only A1 or pre-A1.
Exactly.
Here,
Yeah. So beginner.
True beginners. Yeah, true beginners.
I would say it's what you might call a false beginner. So we assume that they know, for example, alphabet, so they can recognise the alphabet. If they don't, then you might need to do some extra work on reading the alphabet. But we basically assume that they might know some occasional words like coffee and you, he, maybe maybe they know even I, you, that kind of thing. We give some extra support at the back of the book for those who don't.
Like reference.
Yeah, like a reference. So, for example, there's a little unit at the back of the book which just teaches them I, you, he, she, we. But we're assuming a very low level. So I think a beginner, the first, you'll learn things like people, teacher, class, how long, these kinds of words. So you're learning very basic words. It's a slower than, it's quite substantially less. Obviously, we know what's in elementary, so we're trying to write something which is clearly easier. And we're trying to recycle the language as much as possible as we go through. So they have a lot of revision, and after each lesson there's a small little revision task where they may maybe repeat the conversation they had in the previous lesson, or they learn something, repeat some of the vocabulary, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's nice. I'm very, very happy with beginner outcomes. I think it's good. Yeah.
At least 2 more people were able to come, those who were not present at the conference.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
I won't make you stay any longer. Have a nice trip to Krasnoyarsk, enjoy your stay there, have a nice conference, and welcome back anytime.
Yeah.
We'll be happy to meet you again.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll do next time. Okay, bye now.